with all the amazing things coming with the Queen and the Crown DLC, I want to take some time to talk about some of the other amazing things that are not coming with the DLC itself, but with the Resurgent patch and some of the other goodies that are coming on May 31st as well. One of the big things I want to go into is the Runic Forge, the Dwarf Runic Forge. And we're on the lovely Ungrim here, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we jump into the Runic Forge, I want to talk about Oath Gold. Forging items consumes Oath Gold. Oath Gold can be obtained from certain buildings, character skills, recycling magic items, or completing grudges and quests. So, let's take a look really quick. Okay, calm down, Ungrim. I'm trying to do a video right now, Ungrim. Let's take a look at this. So he has Oath Forging. Oath Gold generated is 3 per turn. So this is a way that you get Oath Gold from your actual skill tree. You've also got your little, I think this guy's got it as well. Yeah, Master of the Forge. Now, this being a runesmith, obviously he's going to generate a little bit more because he's a hero. I think that other heroes can only have the ability to generate 1. I have to double check that, but as you can see, Master of the Forge, there are none more adept at metal shaping than those who command the runes themselves. I added that themselves in there. That's called that's called, like, you know, my own little touch. So Master of the Forge here, it gives him Oath Gold of 3 per turn. So between those two abilities, that's 6 Oath Gold per turn. Now, if we look at Carrot Cadron here, look at the building browser, we can take a look at, you know, obviously there's the regular accoutrement. Now, where would you think Oath Gold would be bound to? Of course, the smithy, the armory. So this generates 1 per turn. As it increases to 2, then eventually to 3. So obviously with the Rune Forge, you're generating an additional 3 Oath Gold per turn. So now we've covered the skills that generate it, the characters and heroes that generate it, and now the buildings that generate it. But let's take a look at our Book of Grudges, and we can see that the Get Off My Chuggin' Land grudge here, a reward is 1,000 gold as well as 30 Oath Gold. So you guys are getting a sense here, there's plenty of ways for you to earn Oath Gold, which you can then use in the Runic Forge. I thought we had a quest here, but it looks like we don't. But let's bring back up the Runic Forge here. So you can see, I mean, 30, that's your very first item here. And just like we had with the Tomb Kings and their forge ability, basically, it's the same exact thing. And there was even a mod for this. So maybe it's Creative Assembly looking at the mod culture going, huh, this works. I like this. But again, we see all these amazing things that we can do with the Runic Forge. And it's really exciting, right? So it's a great way to get access to magic items quickly in the game, because sometimes, you know, you might have a slower campaign, you don't get as much access to those things, and it kind of rustles the shit out of your jimmies. But as you know, it's bound to the current resources, and just as we know from the previous one, we can left click here, boom, we just go to the nearest version of that resource. And we'll click Carved Obsidian, boom. So Peak Path. Oh man, that is far. Golden Idols. Could be further, but clearly we're in a good location there. So it does kind of make it so that you have to expand in certain directions that make the most sense for the items you want to create. And as you go down this list, and the more resources, rare resources that it requires, the better the item. Dragon Slayer's Axe, the Gatekeeper's Hammer, the Starbreaker, the Elfbane. Let's take a look at those stats here real quick. So the Elfbane, obviously, it's going to give you some magic resistance. It's going to enable magic attacks. It's going to make you fight and deal more damage to any kind of elf. So that's a pretty substantial weapon, but it's not one I would want to create if I wasn't heading over to the Wood Elves to pursue maybe the long campaign victory for Ungrim, or if I wasn't planning on invading Ulthuan in some sort of War of Vengeance clone. So it could be a kind of a throwaway weapon, so you kind of have to pick and choose what makes the most sense for you. Whereas Starbreaker, I think that's extremely effective, especially against a lot of the greenskins that Ungrim faces. So your melee attack has increased, your weapon strength increased by nearly 20%. But your attacks cause Discouraged, which is even more awesome, and you get Heroic Killing Blow. So, pretty amazing weapon out the gate. But then there's these 3 here. Dragon Slayer's Axe, Gatekeeper's Hammer, and Iron Warden's Hammer. And we're going to go into these 3 abilities here, and I'm gonna kind of maybe even just save them for last, but take note of the names. Dragon Slayer's Axe, We'll just talk about it, screw it. Which gives the passive ability of Dragon Slayer. This gives you 15, obviously an augment self, hit points greater than 50%. So plus 15% AP, plus 5 melee attack, and plus 15% weapon damage. So definitely something that's going to be more geared towards fighting larger creatures. Are you going to be squaring off more with some of the vampire counts? Are you going to be moving north into where the Norskins are? You're going to be fighting a lot of their... I always want to call them the mammoths from Lord of the Rings, but fighting woolly mammoths. Are you fighting werekin? Are you fighting skin wolves? This is going to be a little bit better for fighting against those. Now you got your Gatekeeper's Hammer, which is going to be pretty cool here as well. And the Gatekeeper's armor in general, these things are geared towards specific enemies, and you'll see as we progress through the three upcoming tabs here what they kind of benefit. But the Gatekeeper's Hammer, enables frostbite attacks, so you're going to be doing some slow and some slowing of attack speed, but also the chilling aura, which is the same aura that happens on the Frostworm, is your minus 36% speed. So you'll be able to catch things a little bit easier as Dwarf with your stunty 2-inch legs. So that's pretty great as well. But then, of course, you have the Iron Warden's Hammer, which is your bonus versus infantry, your weapon strength increase, and then your passive ability, the Iron Warden's Hammer with perfect vigor. So you're going to get a sense for how these three play together. And of course, there's the other ones here and there. Let's jump into the armor. The armor's got the nice little... It's worth noting, too, that, I think it's... where was I? Okay. Old Guard, Troll Slayers, and Ironbeards. Old Guards, Troll Slayers, and Ironbeards. So there's 3 sets. There's a magic set, or I'm sorry, an uncommon set. Actually, this is uncommon and that's rare. Whatever it is, whatever the delineation is, green and blue, if you want to think of it in RPG terms. And then you get your purple items down here with your uniques. But let's take a look at the armor. Very bottom here, we have Star Metal Plate. This is going to give you some good armor, some good melee defense, and some good missile resistance. So it's a little bit tankier of a little gear piece here, and it makes it so everything in an aura around you has -9 attack. So a very nice little kind of centerpiece for a lord that's kind of standing in there that might be buffing at the same time and also debuffing with this little Star Metal Plate. Also, you've got Alaric's armor, which really turns you into a veritable tank. Plus 35 armor, plus 20% ward save, and attribute expert charge defense. Good luck knocking this guy down. But then again, good luck having him catch you because it's got -15% speed on a dwarf with, again, 2-inch legs. So you have to weigh these things. What do you want? How do you want to gear this lord? And I think the cool thing about this is this enables you to build dwarf characters in ways that are very specific to the amount of creatures you're fighting. Let's jump out here real quick. So, here's Ungrim. You've got vampire counts and empire right here. You're surrounded on all sides for the most part by by orcs over here. And as you progress further south, you're dealing with more orcs and greenskins. You do get some empire soldiers up here and over here, and you do get a ton of Norskins up here. But as you progress all the way over here, you have wood elves. So it allows you to kit out the kind of enemies you want to fight, and allows you to take advantage of those abilities innate in all these items. Let's talk about the 3 big sets here. The Iron Warden's Shield, passive ability Iron Warden, gives you a nice good 12% of damage resistance. You get your melee defense as well, and your armor. And your Gatekeeper's Helm gives you missile and magic resistance, and some armor as well. And lastly, your Dragon Slayer Scales gives you Terror, which is really cool, and a physical resistance of 7%. Keep in mind, guys, you do have all these abilities from these things too. So your Dragon Slayer is definitely your anti-large. Your Gatekeeper is definitely. We'll get into Gatekeeper and more on the Talisman and Enchanted items. The same thing with Iron Warden's Hammer, because I think it's a little more evident once you get into those two. But now that we've talked about those, let's touch on the talismans. So the purple items, we have the Anchor Chain. This gives you immune to psychology and a physical resistance of 18%. Keep in mind, you're going to probably have a runesmith with you, so this is going to really make your lord in it to win it at that point. You're going to get that melee defensive 6 as well. Pretty nice little caveat. Then you've got the Ring of Grimnir, which gives you the passive ability, Ring of Vengeance, which increases leadership and melee attack. That's a great little ability. It's very much in the same vein of the Book of Grudges, which I believe is melee attack and melee defense. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it gets you a nice little equivocal buff, at least. Leadership's not the most important because you are dwarves and they have amazing leadership as is, but it's always nice to add it to the fray. But weapon strength plus 10%, and then melee attack plus 4. Ring of Grimnir to me is a little more underwhelming than this whopping immunopsychology and physical resist. I'd definitely go with that over the Ring of Grimnir as a whole. Let's take a look at our 3 talismans here as part of the 3-piece set we've been talking so much about. We've got, we'll start at the top. Iron Warden's Wardstone gives you a ward save of 20% when fighting against Chaos, Norska, and Beastmen, which in my mind is what they are gearing that set towards. Untainted plus 6 in the local province, which again, is going to be really great when you're fighting against Chaos, Norska, and Beastmen. And then the Gatekeeper's Ratcatcher. If it doesn't make sense what this is going to be about, I think the name Ratcatcher makes sense here, or it tips the hat, or at least tips the cards. So bonus versus infantry, plus 8, magic resistance 15%, weapon strength plus 12% when fighting against Skaven, and then Dragon Slayer's Fang gives you 20%, and then this passive ability. Plus 9 melee defense, and plus 18 armor. So very, very tanky, but on top of the large creatures you will be fighting. You know, things that spurt fire, like dragons. Moving on. So then we jump on over to our enchanted items. We'll talk about our 2 unique items in this. So we have the Scepter of Stone, melee attack plus 4, and ability Scepter of Stone. It's okay. It's a little bombardment. Causes major magical damage, medium strike area, strong versus single units. So it's okay. It's a great way to get a little damage spell out there when dwarves don't have access to that, but a little underwhelming. Again, physical resistance 5 is so amazing. Because you can stack that with so many of the other buffs that runesmiths offer. But on top of it, you've got Horn of the Ancestors, which allows you to summon an ancestral spirit, which is great fun because you know them. They are ancestral. They are not corporeal, because that would not be what I'm thinking of. Ethereal, so it's a little bit harder to hit them if you don't have magic damage. But let us talk about all 3 set pieces. So the Iron Warden's Tankard is really cool because it gives liquid fortification, which is basically a heal. You know, replenishes hit points. You disabled if leadership is wavering. So it gives you immunopsychology as well. So it's a really cool little ability here that I think works out really well. Gatekeeper's Belt is, again, makes you unbreakable, but it also makes you have 33% damage resistance if you have above 20% health, which is really, really nice. Really nice. Lastly, we have the Dragon Slayer's Boots, which increase speed by 5% and charge bonus, as well as melee defense. So, there's a lot of amazing things this Forge does. And I mean, especially with the inclusion of some of the stuff that we'll be getting here with Ungrim. We've got the Giant Slayers here. I really want to see... I really wish that this would say Thane, Runesmith, Master Engineer, Dragon Slayer. Like, I wish it just had that. Because imagine putting the whole Dragon Slayer set on him. So, which brings up another point of this video I want to talk about, are those 3 sets. So, we've got what I call the Dragon Slayer's Regalia, with your 4 pieces here, your Dragon Slayer's Axe, your Armor, your Talisman, and your Enchanted item. So, what you get with those abilities here is when you get that Dragon Slayer Axe passive ability on... you get the Dragon Slayer's Axe passive ability, is what I'm trying to say. Which, as we know here, gives us AP, melee attack, and weapon damage percent. And we also get the Dragon Slayer's Fang on the Talisman passive ability, which we know gives us melee defense and armor. So this is definitely geared towards hunting larger creatures. You get your bonus versus large. You get a little bit of a speed bonus. You can cause terror. So if you're fighting against, say, trolls, they're a little bit easier to rout with this on. Also, with the physical resist and your fire resistance, you can take a lot of the blows that some of the other creatures are going to be dealing out to you. So I think this is, again, it really depends on how you're looking to fight. Are you looking to fight certain things that are large? You're looking to fight Skaven, you're looking to fight Chaos, you're looking to fight Norska. So on that, I mean, let's bring up another one, shall we? Look at what I call the Gatekeeper's Guard. God, I am not the most original person, but I like to think I'm clever. So you have the Gatekeeper's Hammer, which gives us that chilling aura, that 36% negative to speed, that frostbite attack and melee defense. You've got the Gatekeeper's Helmet, which gives us the nice passive ability as well, which is a magic and missile resistance. Then you also have the Talisman, which is the Gatekeeper's Ratcatcher. In this picture, I think it's a little flipped up here, but that gives us that bonus when fighting against Skaven, and that magic resistance, and a bonus versus infantry. So you can see how these abilities are already kind of stacking up. And then lastly, we have the Gatekeeper's Belt, which gives us damage resistance as well as unbreakable. Now, The way you look at all of those things in conjunction, right? So you're fighting against Skaven. You're going to want that bonus versus infantry. You're going to want magic resistance against all the magic that Skaven like to bring because they're Skaven. But on top of it, you've got Chilling Aura because Skaven like to run away. So it's going to enable you to kind of snare them down. Frostbite attacks as well, so they're not going to be able to swarm you as much. So these sets are definitely geared towards the situations that make the most sense for them. So we'll talk about our last one here with the Iron Warden's Bulwark, as I'm going to call it. God, I am getting better. Getting so much better at my cleverness. But again, here we've got the Iron Warden's Hammer, and that's going to give us that bonus versus infantry, that weapon strength bonus, but it also gives us the passive ability of Perfect Vigor as well. And then again, we have the Iron Warden's Shield, which we've already kind of talked about and gone over loosely. That passive ability gives us that damage resistance. And then lastly, we have got, or last two things here, we've got the Iron Warden's Ward Stone, which gives us that ward save against Chaos Norskin and Beastmen. And then the Enchanted item, the Tanker, that gives us a bit of a heal. So, and immune to psychology too. So again, this set is geared towards fighting these monsters that are going to be larger, or these infantries that are going to be limitless with the Beastmen and the Norskin. So you can see how these things all kind of play hand in hand. And I really enjoy this. I think it's a little bit different than what we see and some of the other ways of going about a lot of the items in the game. Mostly they seem kind of haphazard, or the little nods here and there to items that are in the game from the tabletop. So I really enjoy this kind of take on everything. But this kind of wraps things up with our Dwarven Runic Forge. Hopefully you guys got a really good idea of what's coming here on the 31st as far as Ungrim's Runic Forge goes, or the Dwarf Runic Forge as a whole. And we'll be playing through more of the early access stuff as we can throughout the next week here. We'll be doing some campaigns with Ungrim, with Norska, with Elithanar. I'll probably be only playing the Elithanar one seriously, and the other ones I just want to show off to you guys so you can at least see it. But that kind of wraps up everything up here for today. I think maybe the last thing I forgot to talk about was the recycle mechanic of the Forge. You can recycle any magic item that you find or create, and it gives you Oath Gold that you can then use to make more items. And the rarer the item, the more the Oath Gold. But that's the only point I left out. But hopefully this kind of gives you a good impression of what's coming up here in the future, guys. Thanks so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know if there's any other features that you'd like to see or hear more about. More than happy to dive into those. But thanks so much for watching here today, guys. Have a good one, and take care.